a subpanel, the ground and the neutral buses must be separated. This separation applies to all subpanels, regardless of how they are fed. Consider a scenario with a 200 amp main panel, a 100 amp subpanel fed from the main panel, and then a 60 amp subpanel fed from the 100 amp subpanel. In both the 100 amp and 60 amp subpanels, the ground and neutral buses must be separated. This separation is a requirement of the National Electrical Code to ensure the safety of the electrical system. The ground bus provides a path for fault currents to flow back to the source, while the neutral bus provides a path for current to flow back to the transformer. If the ground and neutral buses were not separated, fault currents could flow through the neutral bus, which could create a fire or shock hazard. The ground bus is typically connected to the ground rod or other grounding electrode system, and the neutral bus is typically connected to the neutral conductor of the feeder cable. Understanding the function and separation of ground and neutral is vital for safe electrical installations. Firstly, the ground bus is connected to the grounding electrode system. This system typically includes a ground rod driven into the earth or connection to a metal water pipe that is in direct contact with the earth for at least 10 feet. The purpose of the grounding electrode system is to provide a low impedance path to earth for fault currents. In the event of a ground fault, where a live conductor comes into contact with a grounded metal part, such as the chassis of an appliance, the fault current will flow through the grounding electrode system back to the source. This high current flow causes a circuit breaker to trip or a fuse to blow, quickly de-energizing the circuit and preventing electrical shock or fire. Secondly, a neutral bus carries the return current from electrical loads back to the source. In a typical 120-volt circuit, the hot conductor carries the current to the load, such as a light bulb or an appliance, and the neutral conductor carries the current back to the source. The neutral conductor is normally at or near 0 volts potential with respect to ground, which is why it is called neutral. The separation of the ground and neutral buses in a subpanel is critical for preventing unwanted current flow on the grounding path. If the ground and neutral buses were connected in a subpanel, some of the neutral current would flow through the grounding conductors. This can create a number of problems. 1. It can cause the metal parts of the electrical system, such as conduit and equipment enclosures, to become energized, creating a shock hazard. 2. It can interfere with the operation of sensitive electronic equipment. 3. It can violate the National Electrical Code. The NEC specifically requires that the ground and neutral conductors be separated in subpanels. The only place where the ground and neutral conductors are allowed to be connected is at the service entrance, which is typically at the main panel. At the service entrance, the neutral conductor is bonded to the grounding electrode system. This bonding ensures that the neutral conductor is at or near ground potential, and it provides a path for fault currents to flow back to the source. In a subpanel, the neutral conductor is isolated from the subpanel enclosure and all other grounded metal parts. The neutral bus in the subpanel is connected only to the neutral conductors of the branch circuits that originate from that subpanel. Similarly, the ground bus in the subpanel is connected only to the grounding conductors of the branch circuits that originate from that subpanel, as well as to the subpanel enclosure itself. The grounding conductors from the branch circuits in the subpanel enclosure are connected back to the main panel's ground bus via a dedicated grounding conductor, which is typically a copper wire or cable. The size of this grounding conductor must be sufficient to carry the maximum fault current that could be expected to flow in the event of a ground fault. The NEC provides guidelines for determining the appropriate size of the grounding conductor based on the size of the overcurrent protection device protecting the circuit. It is important to note that the grounding conductor must be continuous and unbroken from the subpanel back to the main panel. It should not be spliced or interrupted in any way. Any splices or connections in the grounding conductor must be made using approved methods and materials, such as crimp connectors or reversible compression connectors. When installing a subpanel, it is essential to follow all applicable codes and regulations, including the NEC. This includes ensuring that the ground and neutral buses are properly separated and that all grounding conductors are properly sized and installed. If you are not comfortable working with electricity, it is best to hire a qualified electrician to install the subpanel for you. Improperly installed electrical wiring can be dangerous and can create a fire or shock hazard. To further clarify, consider the specific requirements for grounding and bonding in subpanels. Grounding refers to the connection of the electrical system to the earth, while bonding refers to the connection of metal parts of the electrical system together to create a low impedance path for fault currents. In a subpanel, both grounding and bonding are essential for safety. The subpanel enclosure must be bonded to the grounding system to ensure that it is at or near ground potential. This bonding is typically accomplished by connecting a grounding conductor from the subpanel enclosure to the ground bus in the subpanel. The grounding conductor must be sized appropriately for the size of the overcurrent protection device protecting the feeder circuit to the subpanel. In addition to bonding the subpanel enclosure, all metal parts of the electrical system that are likely to become energized must also be bonded together. This includes metal conduit, metal junction boxes, and metal equipment enclosures. Bonding these metal parts together ensures that they are all at the same potential, which reduces the risk of electrical shock. The bonding conductors must be sized appropriately for the size of the overcurrent protection device protecting the circuit. The NEC provides detailed requirements for grounding and bonding in Article 250. It is important to consult the NEC for specific requirements related to your installation. In summary, the separation of ground and neutral buses in subpanels is a critical safety requirement. This separation prevents unwanted current flow on the grounding path and reduces the risk of electrical shock and fire. When installing a subpanel, it is essential to follow all applicable codes and regulations, including the NEC, and to ensure that all grounding and bonding requirements are met. Doing so will help to ensure the safety of the electrical system and the people who use it. Now, let's delve into more detail about the practical aspects of ensuring proper ground and neutral separation in subpanels. When you're setting up a subpanel, the first step is to correctly identify the incoming conductors from the main panel. You'll typically have two hot conductors, a neutral conductor, and a grounding conductor. The hot conductors carry the electricity from the main panel to the subpanel. The neutral conductor provides the return path for the current, and the grounding conductor provides a safety path for fault currents. The neutral conductor should be white or grey in color, while the grounding conductor should be green or bare copper. In a subpanel, you'll have two separate buses or terminal blocks for the neutral and grounding conductors. These buses should be clearly labeled to avoid confusion. The neutral bus is where you'll connect all the white or grey neutral conductors from the branch circuits originating in the subpanel. The grounding bus is where you'll connect all the green or bare copper grounding conductors from the branch circuits, as well as the grounding conductor from the main panel. It's crucial to ensure that the neutral and grounding buses are not connected to each other in any way within the subpanel. The only connection between the neutral and grounding systems should be at the main panel, where the neutral bus is bonded to the grounding electrode system. To maintain this separation, carefully inspect the subpanel's construction. The neutral bus should be mounted on insulators to isolate it from the metal enclosure of the subpanel. The grounding bus, on the other hand, should be directly bonded to the metal enclosure. This bonding ensures that the subpanel enclosure is at ground potential, providing an additional layer of safety. When wiring the branch circuits in the subpanel, always connect the neutral conductor to the neutral bus and the grounding conductor to the grounding bus. Never mix them up or connect them to the wrong bus. Doing so can create a dangerous situation, as it can allow current to flow on the grounding path. After completing the wiring, double-check all connections to ensure that they are tight and secure. Loose connections can cause overheating and arcing, which can lead to a fire. It's also a good idea to use a multimeter to verify that there is no continuity between the neutral and grounding buses in the subpanel. This will confirm that the separation is properly maintained. Remember that the size of the grounding conductor running from the main panel to the subpanel is critical. The NEC provides specific guidelines for sizing this conductor based on the size of the feeder conductors supplying the subpanel. The grounding conductor must be large enough to safely carry the maximum fault current that could be expected to flow in the event of a ground fault. When choosing a subpanel, select one that is appropriately sized for your needs. Consider the number of branch circuits you'll need to run and the total load that the subpanel will be carrying. It's always better to err on the side of caution and choose a subpanel that is slightly larger than you think you'll need. This will give you some extra capacity for future expansion. Also, pay attention to the quality of the subpanel's construction. Look for a subpanel that is made of durable materials and that has a solid, well-built enclosure. The bus bars should be made of copper or aluminum and should be properly sized to handle the expected current load. The circuit breakers should be of good quality and should be properly rated for the circuits they will be protecting. In addition to the electrical considerations, it's also important to think about the physical location of the subpanel. Choose a location that is dry, easily accessible, and free from obstructions. The subpanel should be mounted securely to a wall or other suitable surface. It's also a good idea to install a disconnect switch near the subpanel so that you can easily de-energize the subpanel in the event of an emergency. If you're not comfortable working with electricity, it's always best to hire a qualified electrician to install the subpanel for you. A licensed electrician has the knowledge, skills, and experience to safely and properly install the subpanel in accordance with all applicable codes and regulations. Keep in mind that electrical work can be dangerous, and it's not worth risking your safety or the safety of others by attempting to do it yourself if you're not qualified. Improperly installed electrical wiring can create a fire or shock hazard, which can have serious consequences. So, to reiterate, in every subpanel, regardless of its position in a series of subpanels, the separation of the neutral and ground buses is absolutely essential for safety and code compliance. This ensures that fault currents flow correctly and prevent dangerous situations. Always consult the National Electrical Code and qualified electricians for safe electrical practices.